All right, so today we're really diving deep into the mind of Bill Gates to understand his take on superintelligent AI. We're breaking down this interview he did with Next Big Idea Club on YouTube.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the guy does not hold back. He talks about everything from the speed of AI development to how it's going to impact our jobs, global problems, and even, get this,
Hookable.
pickleball. Yeah, you heard that right, pickleball. Now, this wasn't just some casual tech chat, right? Bill was talking to some serious heavy hitters in the AI world. Rufus Grissom was hosting,
Okay.
along with Andy Sack and Adam Brotman.
Oh,
And those two, they literally wrote the book on AI's impact. It's called AI First.
Oh.
And their whole argument is
Yeah.
that most people are seriously underestimating how massive this whole AI thing is going to be. And honestly, who better to weigh in on that than Bill Gates, right?
Absolutely. So you know that story about Bill Gates seeing the very first graphical user interface back in the 80s at Xerox PARC. That moment that basically changed how we use computers forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, he says seeing GPT-4 in action was even more mind-blowing than that.
Yeah.
Wow. Let that sink in for a second. He's comparing this to the birth of personal computing.
That's a huge statement.
It really is.
I mean, it makes you think about what Gates is seeing here. He's connecting the dots in a way that most people aren't. He sees the GUI as this thing that unlocked a whole new way for humans and computers to interact. But AI, that's unlocking a whole new type of intelligence. It's not just about using computers differently. It's about computers thinking differently.
And that changes everything.
Exactly.
You know what's even crazier? Bill's been fascinated by AI since he was a student.
Really?
Yeah, he even wrote letters to his parents, saying that if he started Microsoft, he might miss out on the AI revolution.
Wow, talk about calling it early.
Right. I mean, the guy was already thinking about this stuff way back then. He was captivated by AI's potential to
Yeah.
basically think like a human. And now he says GPT-4's ability to read, write, and understand information is scary close to what we humans do.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? It really is, in fact. Bill straight up says, AI is, quote, absolutely the most important thing going on, end quote. And he doesn't just mean in the tech world, he means for humanity as a whole. He sees it impacting everything, healthcare, education, solving global issues, and yes, the future of work.
Which, let's be honest, that's what everyone's thinking about.
Right, is the big question.
If AI is going to be this transformative, how do we make sure it creates the world we actually want to live in?
It's a huge question, but Bill's vision of the future isn't all doom and gloom. Forget a computer on every desk. He says it's going to be AI in every earbud, in every pair of glasses.
Interesting.
Right. Imagine having a personal AI assistant that's constantly learning about you, anticipating your needs, and helping you in ways we can't even imagine.
That's incredible to think about.
Right.
But it's not just about convenience, is it? This raises some big questions about privacy, about autonomy. How comfortable are we with AI knowing that much about us, even if it means always having good counsel and advice?
It's something we're going to have to figure out, for sure. But here's the thing. While some people are out there saying, where's the killer AI app? Bill is over here like, hold my drink. I've got ideas for days. He is incredibly optimistic about AI's potential, especially when it comes to tackling global problems like those shortages in healthcare and education, particularly in developing countries. Imagine medical advice or personalized tutoring delivered instantly through your phone in any language, anywhere in the world.
It's a powerful image. And it really speaks to what Gates sees as one of AI's greatest strengths, that potential to level the playing field and give everyone access to resources, no matter who they are or where they live.
It's a game changer. But I think Bill would agree with this. We got to be realistic. AI isn't some magic wand. It's not going to solve all our problems overnight.
Right. He's not naive to the complexities here.
Exactly.
He's very clear about the fact that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
It all comes down to us. We have to make sure it's used responsibly, ethically. He talks about this need to address things like political roadblocks, resource allocation, all these things we need to figure out alongside AI development. Because it's not just about the technology itself, it's about creating a system where everyone benefits.
100%. And, speaking of potential downsides, we kind of have to address the elephant in the room here. AI and jobs.
Yeah.
It's a thing everyone's thinking about.
It's a big one.
And Bill doesn't shy away from it at all. He's very upfront about the fact that, look, AI is probably going to displace certain types of jobs, especially white-collar jobs.
Well, he gives this really interesting example of a CEO who's already using AI to make his salespeople way more productive. The AI analyzes called transcripts, identifies sales patterns, basically coaches the team on how to close deals better.
Wow.
It's like
Yeah.
a perfect example of how AI can boost productivity.
But also potentially
Yeah,
makes certain roles obsolete.
exactly. That's the double-edged sword, right?
Right.
Bill's point is, increased productivity usually leads to a wealthier society overall. But, and this is a big but, we have to make sure those benefits are shared, that everyone benefits. Because if all the gains go to a select few, while a huge chunk of the population is left behind, that's a recipe for disaster.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. But we need to make sure everyone has a boat in the first place.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about jobs, but there's another big concern Bill brings up. Control. How do we even control this technology? And that's where this whole debate about open source AI comes in.
Right. And this is where Bill's perspective gets really interesting. Because he's not totally on board with making the most advanced AI models completely open source.
Really?
Yeah, he's worried about malicious actors
Yeah.
getting their hands on this incredibly powerful technology.
It makes sense when you put it like that. It's like you wouldn't just hand out the recipe for a nuclear bomb to anyone who asked. There need to be some safeguards in place.
Exactly. And that's what Bill's advocating for. He believes governments have a crucial role to play here in regulating AI development and use.
Okay, so before people start freaking out about some kind of Orwellian AI police state,
Right.
it's important to remember Bill's not saying we should stifle innovation.
No, not at all.
He's not anti-open source. In fact, he talks about the amazing potential of open source to drive innovation and collaboration in AI.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. How do we encourage progress while also putting in place some sensible regulations to prevent misuse?
Right.
It's a tough question, and there are strong arguments on both sides.
For sure.
But the key takeaway here is that Bill Gates, someone who's been at the forefront of the tech revolution, sees government regulation as absolutely essential when it comes to AI.
So, even with all that, even with all these potential risks, Bill is still incredibly optimistic about the future of AI. He's not just talking about killer robots and job losses. He spends a good chunk of the interview highlighting the mind-blowing possibilities, especially in fields like healthcare and education. He even jokes about AI becoming incredible pickleball players.
Right, which I think speaks to a larger point he's making. We need to start thinking now about what a world with advanced AI actually looks like for our jobs, our relationships, our sense of purpose. He doesn't have all the answers,
Of course not.
but he frames the challenge beautifully. How do we shape AI into a force for good in a world where it could potentially outperform us in almost every way imaginable?
It's a question that goes way beyond just, will robots take my job? It's about figuring out our place in the world when machines might be able to do almost everything better than us.
And that's where this interview gets really thought-provoking. Bill talks about the idea of a post-scarcity world.
Okay. Before we go any further, let's unpack what that actually means. Because it's not about everyone getting a free yacht and retiring to a life of leisure.
Right. It's a bit more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
What Bill's getting at is that AI has the potential to solve some of the world's biggest problems: hunger, poverty, disease. Imagine a world where resources are abundant, where everyone has access to healthcare, education, opportunity. That's the promise of a post-scarcity world.
But I think you'd agree with this. It also raises some pretty big questions.
It does.
What happens to the concept of work? In a world where machines can do most of what we consider productive today, what gives our lives meaning and purpose, if AI is taking care of our basic needs.
It's almost like we need to rethink the very definitions of work and purpose when machines can do so much of what we currently value.
It's a fascinating dilemma, and it's one that Bill admits he doesn't have a solution for.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, he's not saying we should all just become couch potatoes. While robots do everything for us.
No. He's definitely not advocating for some kind of passive existence.
Right.
His point is, we need to start thinking about these implications now, the positive and the negative, so we can actively shape the future we want.
It's that he's saying, hey, this AI thing is huge, and we need to make sure it works for us, not the other way around. And it's not just about these big existential questions either. He also drops some really fascinating insights into the future of AI development itself. He says it's not just about building bigger and more powerful AI models. It's not just about size. He says the real game changer is going to be developing AI with, he calls, metacognition.
Okay.
So, for those of us who, don't speak fluent tech, what does that even mean?
Basically, imagine an AI that can think about its own thinking.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, picture it, writing code, But then it also double-checks its work for errors, optimizes it for speed, maybe even brainstorms different ways to approach the problem, just like a human programmer would.
Okay. So it's not just about,
No.
brute force processing power. It's about AI that's actually smarter, more adaptable, more like us
Exactly.
in how it tackles challenges.
Exactly. It's about AI that understands why it's doing something,
Okay.
not just what it's doing.
So it's like the difference between a calculator that can crunch numbers
Yeah.
and a mathematician who can actually understand the concepts
Yeah.
and come up with, you know, elegant solutions.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that's where Bill sees the real breakthroughs coming. AI that's more human-like in its thinking.
Okay.
AI that can understand,
Yeah.
reason, and adapt.
So where does that leave us if we kind of zoom out, look at the big picture here? What are your main takeaways from this whole deep dive into Bill Gates' vision of the AI future?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we are on the verge of something truly revolutionary. AI has the potential to reshape our world in ways we can barely even imagine.
It's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It really is.
It's like we're holding this incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah.
We're not quite sure what to do with it yet.
And that's exactly why it's so important to be having these conversations now.
Yes.
While it's still early,
Yeah.
we need to be thinking critically about the implications of AI. We need to be demanding transparency from the companies developing it. And we need to be advocating for policies that ensure it's used ethically and responsibly.
Because as Bill Gates points out, this isn't just about technology, it's about humanity.
Absolutely. It's about figuring out how we navigate this rapidly changing landscape and shape a future where AI empowers us, not defines us.
So there you have it, your crash course in Bill Gates' vision of the AI future. It's exciting, it's a little unsettling, and it definitely gives us all a lot to think about. What stood out to you? What does this mean for your work, your life, your future? Let us know your thoughts. And until next time, happy thinking.